Welcome to Teolumen Insights, where we reveal the hidden forces that shape the way you live and show you how to use them to create real transformation and supercharge your health, mindset, and daily life. Here are your hosts, Emma Greenwood and Nathan Sinclaire.
Welcome back to Teolumen Insights, where we dive into some pretty interesting ideas. I'm Nathan Sinclaire, and today we're taking a deep dive into the work of Thomas Campbell.
And I'm Emma Greenwood. We'll be exploring Campbell's model, which he calls my big TOE. That's my big theory of everything.
Yeah, pretty ambitious, right? But that's what we're here for, to explore how Campbell tries to explain, well, everything, from like the nature of reality to the evolution of consciousness.
It definitely gets pretty wild. Campbell starts with a question that, well, a lot of people have pondered for centuries. What is reality, really? Is it just, the physical stuff, or is there something more?
Right. Like, are we just biological machines, or is there a deeper reality beyond what we can see and touch?
Exactly. And Campbell, he's a physicist, so he comes at this from a scientific perspective. But he had some early experiences that really made him question the materialist worldview.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, as a physics grad student, he started having these intuitive insights, like he could just sense errors in computer code. Not typos, but like logic errors,
Wow. So like he was debugging code with his mind. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was like he was tapping into a level of understanding beyond the code itself. And it made him realize that there might be more to reality than what we can observe and measure with traditional scientific methods.
So this kind of pushed him to explore the idea of consciousness as like the foundation of reality, not just a product of the brain, but something more fundamental.
Exactly. He started exploring the idea that consciousness might actually be the source of reality itself.
Wow, that's quite a shift from crunching numbers to pondering the mysteries of consciousness. What specifically sparked this exploration?
Well, a key event was his encounter with the work of Robert Monroe. He was a pioneer in consciousness exploration. He founded the Monroe Institute, and they were doing research on altered states of consciousness, things like out-of-body experiences. They use sound technology for that.
Out-of-body experiences. That's getting into some pretty far-out territory.
Yeah, it is. But Campbell, he approached these phenomena with a healthy dose of skepticism, but he was also open to exploring possibilities outside of the conventional paradigm. So he spent years at the Monroe Institute meticulously documenting his findings and developing protocols to induce and study these altered states.
So he was essentially testing the limits of reality, like a scientific explorer venturing into uncharted territory.
Yeah, I like that analogy. And his research led him to conclude that people could consistently access and interact with a non-physical reality, like a reality separate from our physical world.
That's a pretty bold claim. It definitely challenges, our everyday understanding of what's real.
It does, and that's where Campbell's model, his big TOE, comes in. He proposes a framework for understanding reality that incorporates both the physical and non-physical, the objective and the subjective, all into one coherent system.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive into this big TOE. Where does he begin?
He starts with this concept he calls Absolute Unbounded Oneness. He describes it as the ultimate source of, everything. Pure consciousness, pure being, with no limitations. It's everything and nothing all at once.
Whoa, that's a lot to take in. Are we talking about like God here? Some kind of divine creator?
Not necessarily. Campbell, he avoids religious terminology, but he's essentially pointing to a source that transcends our limited human understanding. It's the ground of all being, the potential from which everything arises.
Okay, so like trying to grasp this absolute unbounded oneness is like trying to imagine a color you've never seen before. It's beyond our current comprehension.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
So from this absolute unbounded oneness, what emerges?
From this source comes what he calls the absolute unbounded manifold. You can think of it like an infinite canvas with infinite possibilities, the potential for everything that could be.
Okay, so absolute unbounded oneness is the source, and absolute unbounded manifold is like the raw material of reality waiting to be shaped and formed.
That's a great analogy. And within this manifold, what we might call individual units of consciousness emerge. Campbell calls them IUOCs. They're like sparks of awareness, fragments of the source, and each one has the potential to explore and experience the vast possibilities of this manifold.
So we're all like little pieces of the cosmic puzzle trying to figure out where we fit in.
Exactly. And the purpose of this journey, according to Campbell, is to evolve our consciousness, to move towards greater understanding, connection, and love.
Okay, that sounds pretty profound. But how does this abstract concept of an absolute unbounded manifold translate into the reality we experience every day? The concrete world of trees and rocks and coffee.
Right, that's where the big picture comes in. Campbell proposes that the larger consciousness system, he sometimes calls it the LCS, created this reality as a learning environment, a way for these individual units of consciousness to grow and evolve.
So reality is like a cosmic school, and we're all here to learn and grow. I like that. But why does it have to be so confusing?
Well, growth often comes with challenges, right? And to make this cosmic school effective, you need a set of rules, a framework that governs how things work. And those rules are what we experience as the laws of physics.
So physics is basically the syllabus for this reality.
That's one way to put it. And within this reality, we have two main realms: physical matter reality, which he calls PMR, and then there's non-physical matter reality, or NPMR.
Okay, so PMR is the physical world we experience. Trees, rocks, pizza, all the good stuff. But what about NPMR? Is that where, like, ghosts and spirits hang out?
It's a bit more nuanced than that. Think of NPMR as the underlying reality, the realm of consciousness from which PMR emerges. So that's where our thoughts, dreams, and intuitions reside. It's also where those out-of-body experiences that Campbell studied seem to take place.
So NPMR is like the backstage area where the sets for PMR are built.
Yeah, that's a helpful way to think about it. In NPMR, things are less bound by the rigid laws of physics that we have in PMR. There's greater flexibility and possibility in that realm.
Okay, so we've got these two interconnected realms, PMR and NPMR, and we're all these sparks of consciousness, these IUOCs, trying to evolve. But how does it all work? How does this all fit into the theory of everything?
Well, Campbell argues that consciousness isn't just some, ephemeral thing. It's actually information. And information, as we know, can be processed, stored, and transmitted.
Hold on. Are you saying that consciousness is like a computer program?
In a way, yes. He proposes that consciousness operates like a digital system, processing information from NPMR and translating it into our experience in PMR. And he calls this the fundamental process.
Okay, now things are getting really mind-bending. So our brains are like biological computers running this fundamental process, and that creates our reality.
It's a simplified way to think about it, but yeah. And like any computer program, our consciousness is governed by a set of rules. Campbell calls them rule sets.
So these rule sets are like the programming language of reality.
Exactly. They dictate how information is processed, how cause and effect work, and ultimately how our reality unfolds.
I'm starting to see how this could be a theory of everything. It connects consciousness, information, and physics all together. But how much control do we actually have in this whole process? Are we just puppets of this fundamental process? Or can we actually influence how our reality unfolds?
That's where the concept of intention comes in. Campbell argues that our intentions, our thoughts, our beliefs, and our desires, they all play a crucial role in shaping our reality. He suggests that our minds are not separate from this larger consciousness system, but that we're actually participating in the creation process.
So we're not just passive observers, we're like co-creators of our reality.
Exactly. But of course, that comes with responsibility. If our thoughts and intentions can influence reality, then we need to be mindful of what we're putting out there, right? What we focus on, what we believe, what we desire. It all contributes to the reality we experience.
So if I'm constantly like thinking negative thoughts and focusing on my fears, I'm actually attracting more negativity into my life.
That's the idea. Campbell argues that we're constantly transmitting information into this larger consciousness system, and that information influences the reality we perceive.
Okay, this is sounding a lot like the law of attraction. Like positive thoughts attract positive experiences and all that.
There are definitely parallels. But Campbell's model goes beyond simple affirmations and positive thinking. He's talking about a much deeper understanding of how consciousness is interconnected and the role we play in shaping reality.
So it's not just about like thinking happy thoughts. It's about aligning our intentions with our values and aspirations.
Yes, and understanding the power of our minds to influence the world around us. Campbell suggests that our minds aren't, just confined to our physical bodies. They actually extend outward, creating what he calls mind space. And this mind space interacts with the larger consciousness system.
Wait, mind space, is that like a psychic force field or something?
It's more like a field of information that we're constantly projecting and receiving. And this mind space is where things like telepathy and precognitive experiences might occur.
Telepathy and precognition. Now we're really going down the rabbit hole. Is there any evidence for these things?
Well, Campbell argues that these phenomena aren't supernatural or, paranormal, but that they're actually natural consequences of how consciousness works in this interconnected system. So telepathy is just consciousness communicating directly with consciousness, bypassing, the limitations of physical distance and language.
So it's like a cosmic internet connecting all minds. I kind of like that idea.
And he suggests that precognitive experiences might be glimpses into future probabilities, not fixed events, but potential outcomes that we can influence with our choices and intentions.
Okay, so if I have a dream about winning the lottery, I shouldn't run out and buy a ticket just yet. I might jinx it.
Right. It's more about understanding the potential pathways and making choices that align with the outcome you desire. But of course, free will is always a factor. The future isn't set in stone.
This is a lot to process. Really mind-blowing stuff. But I'm definitely intrigued. Where do we even go from here? How do we make sense of all of this and actually apply it to our lives?
Well, that's where the concept of sentience comes in. Remember, Campbell defines consciousness as awareness with a choice. Sentience is about the quality of that awareness, the depth of understanding and connection to the larger system.
So it's not just about being aware. It's about becoming more conscious, more connected, more sentient.
Exactly. And that's the heart of Campbell's message. The purpose of our journey in this reality is to evolve our sentience, to move towards greater understanding, compassion, and love.
That sounds like a journey worth taking. But how do we cultivate sentience? What are the tools or practices that can help us on this path?
Well, that's a conversation for our next deep dive. But I think we've laid a good foundation today. We've explored the core concepts of Campbell's Big TOE, from absolute unbounded oneness to the idea that consciousness is information, the role of intention, and even the potential for things like telepathy and precognition.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground. Let's give our listeners a moment to process all of this. We'll be right back to continue our exploration of Thomas Campbell's Big TOE right here on Teolumen Insights.
Welcome back to Teolumen Insights. Before the break, we were talking about sentience and how it's a key part of Thomas Campbell's model.
Yeah, sentience, it's not just about being aware. It's about the quality of that awareness, the understanding, the connection, and the love. But how do we actually cultivate that? It all sounds a bit abstract.
Well, Campbell suggests that the key is to shift our focus from the individual self to the larger consciousness system. Remember, he argues that we're not really separate, but interconnected parts of a greater whole.
So it's about expanding our sense of self, recognizing that we're connected to everything around us.
Exactly. And this shift in perspective, it has big implications for how we live. When we see ourselves as part of something bigger, our motivations change. We're less driven by self-interest and more inclined to do things that benefit the whole.
That makes sense. It's like the difference between playing a game for your own glory versus playing as part of a team. Your strategy changes when you're focused on the collective goal.
That's a great analogy. And Campbell argues that this shift in perspective is essential for our evolution, both individually and collectively. The more we cultivate sentience, the more we align ourselves with the evolutionary flow of the larger consciousness system.
Okay, but let's get practical here. How do we actually cultivate this sentience in our daily lives?
Yeah.
Are we talking like meditation, mindfulness, chanting mantras? Give us the inside scoop.
Well, Campbell does recommend practices like meditation and mindfulness. They help us quiet the mind and become more aware of our thoughts and feelings, But he also emphasizes making choices that are aligned with love and compassion.
So being a good person is part of the equation. It's not just about sitting on a meditation cushion all day.
Exactly. It's about integrating those principles into our actions, into our daily lives, choosing kindness over judgment, forgiveness over resentment, and understanding over fear.
But let's be real, life isn't always, sunshine and roses. We all face challenges, we make mistakes, and sometimes we're just jerks. How does Campbell address the less than sentient parts of human nature?
He acknowledges that we're all works in progress. We all have our flaws, our blind spots, we have moments of weakness, but the key is to keep striving, to keep learning, and to keep growing.
So it's a process, not a destination. We're all just kind of stumbling along the path toward greater sentience. That's reassuring, because sometimes it feels like I'm taking 2 steps back for every 1 step forward.
I think that's a common experience. But Campbell reminds us that even our mistakes can be valuable learning opportunities. It's about recognizing our missteps, taking responsibility, and, just making a conscious effort to do better next time.
Okay, I can get behind that. So making mistakes is part of the process. But what about those times when we're intentionally hurtful or selfish? Does Campbell, believe in karma, some kind of cosmic payback for our bad deeds?
He doesn't really frame it in terms of punishment or reward, but he does suggest that our choices have consequences, both in this reality and beyond. Remember, he argues that consciousness is fundamental, and our actions have an impact on that larger consciousness system.
So it's not about, some divine being judging our every move, but more about the natural consequences of our actions kind of rippling through the system.
Exactly. And those consequences can manifest in different ways, not necessarily some kind of karmic punishment, but more like experiences that provide us with opportunities to learn and grow.
That's a more nuanced and less scary perspective on karma, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not about retribution, it's about feedback and growth.
Right. And this ties back to the idea of entropy that we talked about earlier. Remember, Campbell says that the larger consciousness system is always trying to reduce entropy, to move towards order, harmony, complexity.
Right. Entropy is like a measure of disorder or randomness. So the universe is basically trying to clean up its cosmic closet.
In a way, yeah. And our choices, our actions, our intentions, they all contribute to either increasing or decreasing entropy in the system.
So choosing love and compassion is like a cosmic act of tidying up. I like that. It makes those choices feel even more meaningful.
It does, doesn't it? And Campbell suggests that as we evolve our sentience, we naturally become more aligned with this entropy-reducing flow of the system. We start making choices that contribute to greater harmony, both within ourselves and in the world around us.
That sounds great. But how do we know if we're actually on the right track? Are there any, signs that we're actually evolving our sentience?
Well, Campbell suggests that one key indicator is our level of happiness and fulfillment. He observed that people who are kind, compassionate, and connected to something larger than themselves tend to be, happier and more at peace.
So happiness is a byproduct of sentience. That's good news. I always thought the pursuit of happiness was kind of selfish, but if it's aligned with the evolution of consciousness, then it feels more meaningful.
It's not about chasing fleeting pleasures. It's about cultivating a deep sense of inner peace and contentment that comes from, living in alignment with your true nature.
Okay, I can get behind that. But what about those times when we're struggling? When we feel lost or disconnected? Does Campbell offer any advice for navigating those tough times?
He does. He talks about the importance of self-awareness, paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, and your motivations. He encourages us to be honest with ourselves about our strengths and our weaknesses, and to approach life with a sense of curiosity and openness.
Well, it's about getting to know ourselves, both the good and the bad.
Exactly, and it's about recognizing that we're all on this journey, and there will be bumps in the road. The key is to just keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving to align our choices with our, with our highest understanding.
This all makes sense, but I gotta admit, it's a lot to wrap my head around. Is there anything we can do to, make this process of cultivating sentience more tangible, more accessible,
Well, Campbell often uses this analogy of a video game to help explain his ideas. He suggests that our reality is kind of like a virtual reality, a simulation created by the larger consciousness system. And just like in a video game, we have the ability to make choices, level up our skills, and ultimately achieve our goals.
Okay, the video game analogy, I like it. It makes these concepts a little less intimidating and more relatable. So, if reality is like a video game, what's the goal? What are we all trying to achieve?
The ultimate goal, according to Campbell, is to evolve our consciousness to the point where we can transcend the limitations of this virtual reality and merge back into that absolute unbounded oneness that we talked about earlier.
Whoa. So we're talking about escaping the matrix, reaching enlightenment, nirvana.
You could say that, but it's not about, checking out of this reality. It's about transforming our experience of it, becoming more loving, more compassionate, more connected, and more aware of our true nature.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's not just about personal enlightenment. It's about contributing to the evolution of consciousness itself.
Exactly. And Campbell argues that this evolution isn't just a possibility, it's a necessity. He says that the universe is inherently self-correcting, and that eventually all consciousness will evolve toward love, harmony, and understanding.
That's a hopeful message. But it makes me wonder, what about those who are resistant to this evolution? What about the folks who choose to stay stuck in their, egoic, self-serving patterns?
Well, Campbell acknowledges that free will is fundamental. We have the choice to evolve or to, remain stagnant. But he suggests that eventually the consequences of our choices become clear, and those who cling to their egoic patterns will experience more suffering.
So it's not about punishment, but just the natural consequences of our choices.
Right. And those consequences can be pretty motivating, you know?
I guess so. This is all fascinating. But I have to ask, how do we know any of this is true? Campbell's model is thought-provoking, but is there any evidence to back it up?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that Campbell addresses head-on. He says that true understanding requires more than just intellectual agreement. It requires personal experience. He encourages us to test his model, experiment with the practices he suggests, and see for ourselves if they lead to greater happiness, fulfillment, and connection.
So it's not about blindly believing what he says. It's about putting his ideas into practice and seeing what happens.
Exactly. He's offering a framework, a set of tools, and a path to explore. But ultimately, the journey is up to each of us.
I like that. It takes the pressure off having to, have all the answers. And it puts the focus on personal experience and growth.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of Campbell's work. It's not a dogma or a belief system. It's an invitation to explore the mysteries of consciousness and discover our role in this grand evolution of the universe.
I love that. So what's next on our journey into Thomas Campbell's Big Tay? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's time to delve into some of the practical applications of Campbell's model. How can we use these principles of sentience, intention, and conscious choice to create a more fulfilling life, a more meaningful life?
Sounds like a plan. We'll be back after a short break to explore those practical applications right here on Teolumen Insights.
Welcome back to Teolumen Insights. We've been exploring Thomas Campbell's Big Tay, and it's really given us a lot to think about, hasn't it?
It really has. It's challenged some of our assumptions about, well, just about everything. Reality, consciousness, the whole shebang.
Yeah, for sure. But now I'm thinking, okay, how do we actually use this stuff? We're not all going to become physicists or, meditate in caves all day. Well, you don't have to. Although a little quiet contemplation never hurts anyone. But you're right. It's about applying these principles to everyday life.
So what's the big TOE cheat sheet for a more conscious life? What can we start doing, today?
Campbell doesn't give us, a rule book or anything, but he stresses the importance of a few things: awareness, intention, and choice.
Yeah, I'm listening.
So first, cultivate awareness. Pay attention to your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. Notice how your beliefs shape your experience.
So, wake up and realize what's going on in our minds.
Yeah, exactly. Become aware of the program that's running in the background. Then focus on your intention. What do you want to create in your life? What kind of person do you want to be?
So get clear on our goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And think about the impact you want to have on the world. And finally, make choices that are aligned with that intention. And with your understanding of the big picture.
You mean the whole interconnected consciousness thing?
Exactly. Remember, Campbell says every choice is like a vote for the reality you want.
So choose love, choose kindness, choose actions that help everyone.
Right. But it's not like you flip a switch and you're done. It's a process.
Yeah.
There will be challenges, setbacks, moments where you doubt yourself.
Yeah, that's real life for sure.
The point is to keep learning and growing. Keep striving to align your choices with your best understanding.
I get that. But it also feels like a lot of responsibility.
It is. But Campbell talks about forgiveness, too. Forgiving ourselves and others. We're all just doing our best with what we know, right? And he has a good sense of humor about it all. He reminds us that this reality, it's like a learning game. It's all about growth.
Okay, I can get behind that. Life's too short to be so serious all the time. But what about fear? Fear's a big one. How does Campbell deal with that in the Big TOE?
He says fear is normal, natural, but we shouldn't let it control us. Fear comes from a limited perspective, focusing on just ourselves and our survival. When we see the bigger picture, our connection to everything, well, fear starts to lose its power.
So the more connected we feel, the less afraid we are.
Exactly. He reminds us that we're not alone. We're part of something much bigger. And we have access to support and love from the source itself.
That's a comforting thought. A lot of people feel lost and alone these days, searching for, connection and meaning. Does Campbell offer any hope for those folks?
Absolutely. His message is all about hope and empowerment. He reminds us that we're powerful. we can shape our reality, and we can contribute to the evolution of consciousness itself.
That's powerful stuff.
It is. He encourages us to tap into our own wisdom, connect with the source, and make choices that are, in line with our highest aspirations.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive into Thomas Campbell's work. It's given us a lot to think about and a whole new way of looking at reality.
I agree. It's a reminder that we're not just watching this all play out, we're active participants.
And that's a pretty exciting thought. To all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this incredible journey here on Teolumen Insights. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep choosing love.